because of its growth, they decided to go ahead and import more labor. So it is said. My belief is that we were already there. That's just my belief. I believe that the African man was in the Caribbean, he was in South America, he was in Central America. And it's being proven today. So we did come from Africa, but not all of us were brought on a ship. Some of us came by ourselves and inhabited this land before those slaves. Okay? That's just my belief. Now, the slaves that they brought to Jamaica, there's some bad slaves. There were some rebels. They didn't just sit still or whatever. So they were constant rebellions. Constant. We didn't stand still. So there was a group of those slaves now that ran to the hills. Anybody know their name? There you go. There were some bad guys, man. And women. And women. Now, they were so bad and we were doing so much as far as rebellions, the British government couldn't take it. But still, the British government was smart. They were smart. They made a pact with the Maroons, gave them land, and gave them their own sovereignty. And that sovereignty, that treaty that they gave them, still exists today. And I don't know if you understand what they mean by sovereignty. That means you can't just go up there. No. You have to get permission. Okay? But the agreement that the Maroons made with the English was not in agreement with all the Maroons. Because one of the agreements that they had to make with the English was they, at that point, had to return the runaway slaves. Okay? Now, that didn't really sit too well with everybody. You know what I mean? But anyways, they got the agreements and everything like that. Now, Jamaica's export, like I said, was sugar and other things. Bauxite became another major export that we had, and that came during the 50s and the 60s. Now, back in about the 1880s, there were some other groups that were out there that were fighting, that were trying to get Jamaica to become independent. Some of the revolutionary people that we had was Paul Vogel. Anybody heard of Paul Vogel? Which revolution did he start? There you go. And he was subsequently caught and hung. I think he had William Gordon was one of his cohorts too. Now in 1808, there was an abolitionist bill that was passed pertaining to trading African slaves. And by 1834, it was fully passed. That means you couldn't buy slaves, you couldn't transact slavery anymore. So basically, we were set up for independence. So the independence that we got beforehand was, they called it emancipation. It didn't just apply to Jamaica, it applied to the other islands also. In 1962, led by two men, Mr. Norman Manley and Mr. Bustamante. Those were two heroes. These are national heroes that we had. Mr. Bustamante went on to become our first prime minister. But the credit still has to go to both of them. But even before those two really spearheaded the independence movement, there was a gentleman named Mr. Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey preached about freedom, preached about self-independence, preached about self-reliance. And there's a book And in my opinion, next to the Bible, it's our instructions on what to do. That book, in my opinion, the writings that he's got in there, still are relevant today. And may I comment at this point, since 1962, we have had so-called independence because the Queen is still there. The Queen is still getting paid. Like I said, they were very, very smart. They didn't just leave. They left an overseer also, the Governor General. That means the army can't do nothing without his permission. Prime Minister can't do nothing without his permission. So I beg you, when you start criticizing the government, know that there are some other hands at work here. That word independence really doesn't apply. I mean, it's there and they say we've got it, but we're really not free as yet, guys. We really are not. So there should be a prayer that's let out for our people. There are things that are going on down there that, in my opinion, are orchestrated. Okay? It's not just orchestrated in Jamaica, it's orchestrated all over the world. Okay? So we need prayer. Some of the times we talk about the exports that we have from Jamaica. Jamaica's exports are banana, sugar, coffee, bauxite. And in recent years, we have said the number one export that we have from Jamaica is our music. But I must tell you, recently, and I look here, and I've got to say that the number one export that we've got is our people.
Yes, people.
Is our people. It really is. We are in every corner of the world.
Yes.
Every corner of the world. Representing.
Yes.
You know, I hear about going on.
Yes.
We are representing. We are representing right here. But I'll say this to you. I do shipping and I talk to a lot of people. I know a lot of people with good hearts that are doing it. We need to do more.
Yes.
We can't forget those people that are back home.
No, we can't.
You yourself know how hard you had it.
Yes.
But you got it a little bit easier than them right now. If you have $2, send them one. Man, I tell you, they need it. They need it. Please. So my pledge to you is, I will do my best. Just make sure that you're doing yours.
Wonderful. Round of applause to Mr. John Perry, everybody. Thank you, John. Now, Jamaica is the largest little country in the world. Hear me again. Jamaica is the largest little country in the world. And we little but we? Amen. At this time, since you all were